Hello everybody, welcome to another CPRC of Colorado course. Today we're going to be discussing medical marijuana and our communities, and this particular course is specific to Colorado and specifically El Paso County. Some things like dosing and some of the other concerns that we're going to discuss today do apply to more than just Colorado and more than just El Paso County, but the numbers that you will see in here are specific to El Paso because that's where we teach this class. So the contributors are Colorado Springs Police Department, multiple departments, Colorado Springs Fire Department, Colorado Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division, and CDPHE, which is not listed there, Cannabis Patient Resource Connection, their research, or our research, Impact Network, and ECS Therapy Centers. Today's town hall topics are how medical marijuana works in the state of Colorado, dosing, neighbor and patient concerns, impacts and possible solutions, and why collaboration is important. Of course, it's recorded, so there's not going to be any Q&A at the end. This is not a live class, but just one that we have on hand that we can send off to our elected officials as needed. All right, so let's get into it. Medical marijuana. This is the stereotype. This is what we all imagine when we think of medical marijuana patients. Wink, wink, I have glaucoma. Unfortunately, this is the reality of medical marijuana in the state of Colorado. There are several autoimmune patients in these pictures, including myself up at the top left, and the little girl in the middle, also being held by another autoimmune patient. The little girl, if you Google miracles for Maisha, she is fighting neuroblastoma for the third time. As a 5-year-old, she has Coffin-Siris syndrome and is missing a part of her 6th chromosome, and so chronic cancers are an everyday part of her life now, and so she's working on fighting neuroblastoma again. All right, and we have a lot of veterans, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner there. That's my husband in Panama in the Marine Corps way back in the 80s and maybe early 90s. Right, numbers. El Paso County has just under 19,000 medical marijuana patients. And that's according to the CDPHE stats from December of 2016. I can't find any newer stats. The state at that time had 94,577 patients total. And according to testimony on 12/20 up at the state capitol, El Paso County Vice and Narcotics Officer mentioned that there were 378 complaints being investigated. Not all of them are probably illegal grows. Not all of them were organized crime. That's just how many complaints that are being investigated. And we'll get into what the bulk of the complaints are in just a minute. This is less than 1% of Colorado Springs homes, and keep in mind that number, the 378, is over the entire county, not just in Colorado Springs. So that makes this number even less. So I think it amounts to maybe 0.3 of 1% if you were to do the statistics. According to Colorado Springs Fire Department, from January 2015 to July 2016, only 9 possible marijuana-related incidents happened, and notice the possible marijuana incidents happened. One was a fire out on arrival, and another one was a possible fire again. Most of the homes involved are rentals. Now let's look at some patient trends as far as the numbers of patients. This is statewide. The total number of patients from 2015 to 2016 has absolutely decreased and is steadily decreasing. So starting in 2015, in April, we really started to see a lot of folks going down. Now I could go back and see where we were in 14 and go from there. But it does look like we are losing patients. And this last number right up in here should say December of 16 because this is the December number right here. All right, more statistics. The column on your left, or the columns on your left, are El Paso County specific. Over the last year, we've had a very steady number of patients in the lower 19,000s. Just recently, in December of 16, it dropped under 19,000 to just over 18,000 patients. I think it's 18,052. Also, if you look at the statewide totals of plant counts, these are the numbers statewide who have a plant count of 50 or more. So what does the data say? The patient numbers are decreasing steadily, and the trend did start before more restrictive legislation came in. So this is not a trend that is the result of legislation. It was happening concurrent with the legislation. Also, keep in mind that less than 4% of the total state patients have a plant count over 50. Less than 4%. All right, so how do you get a card? The doctor. Right? Adult patients with a qualifying condition, they go to a doctor and the doctor writes the recommendation. The fees do vary. There's not a standard fee. Average adult is going to pay between $100 and $150. If you have a moderate to severe disease and need extended plant counts, you will pay more. Whether or not that's ethical is another question, but you will pay more based on the severity of your disease. Pediatric patients are required to see 2 physicians for the recommendation, and the fees average between $250 and $350, and I have seen them upwards of $1,000 to get these for pediatric patients. Keep in mind they're not covered by insurance, and once all the appropriate forms are filled out, which is done in an online registry right now, the patient can visit a dispensary or work with a caregiver. And again, the plant count should and is determined by the severity of the symptoms and not the patient, or the severity of the symptoms and not the disease. Severe symptoms, disease require 50 plus to maintain the appropriate dosing and chemical variety. If you have a moderate condition, you could be recommended anywhere from 24 to 50. Getting the cannabis. Right? The patient generally has 3 options. They can sign their plants over to a dispensary, which is called becoming a member of that particular dispensary. They can allow a private caregiver to grow for them, or they can choose to grow the plants themselves. Many patients do become members of dispensaries, but the patients with specific needs and those needing higher quality medicine or cannabinoid-specific medicine tend to choose private caregivers. Understand that most dispensaries carry cannabis based on the THC content. They carry hybrids. They do carry some CBD varieties as well, but you're not going to go in and get information about cannabichromene. It's going to be very hard to find cannabinoids like tetrahydrocannabivarin that are isolated, and dispensaries don't necessarily meet the needs of patients. Right. A portion of the patients do choose to grow their own personal plants, and they actually do consider it part of their therapeutic regimen. And most of the patients taking part in this, or a good portion of them, are veterans, to where the gardening is quite therapeutic as it treats their PTSD. New laws, Colorado HB 1220 and 1221, which funds 1220, have criminalized severe patients that have no other choice but to grow. Most severe patients, if you were to try to purchase what you needed in a dispensary, the cheapest option you're going to find is several $100s to upwards of $3,000 a month. I actually know cancer patients that spend $3,000 a month trying to save their lives. Appropriate dosing. Medical cannabinoid dosing, or therapeutic cannabinoid dosing, is significantly higher than recreational dosing. And so when you think about plant counts at the state level, 6 was a recreational level. And so therefore 6 is not appropriate as a medical or therapeutic level. And cannabis is usually replacing drugs that are more psychoactive than the cannabis or the THC. Extended plant counts are allowed if the patient has the need for oils, edibles, tinctures, topicals, and a lot of times they use all of those therapies combined, or if the patient needs consistent inhaled medication. There are veterans that I know treating PTSD that would go use up to an ounce of inhaled medication a day. Out of just over 94,000 medical cannabis patients, 20% have extended counts, which is a count over 6. Less than 4% of patients have counts over 50. More on appropriate dosing. One plant in an average patient grow yields between 2 and 12 ounces of dry flower, but averages 6. Multiple strains are needed, and each strain is a different medicine. And for more information on that, check out our cannabinoids and terpenes class that is also online on the same channel. Oil dosing can be 25 milligrams per kilogram or higher, and 1 gram of oil contains between 700 and 1,000 milligrams of cannabinoids. And let's just take that 150-pound person at 25 milligrams per kilogram, that's 1,700 milligrams just as a base. That's not symptom control, that's not anything else, that's just a base. Epilepsy, autoimmune, and cancer patients can spend upward of $1,500 to $3,000 a month to save their loved ones. And again, the dose depends on the severity of the disease, not the condition. Neighbor concerns. All right, the smell. This is the #1 complaint, is smell. So of those 378 calls that are being investigated, the majority of them are going to be smell. Heavy traffic was a concern. Location of medical marijuana centers, the noise from their industrial operations. Rental abuse was a huge concern, and criminal activity was also a concern that neighborhoods are bringing up. Patients also have concerns. Scientific misconduct and medical persecution, as you can see off to the right, and I do have permission to use this. Dr. Ross was in the hospital with an open surgical wound that developed an infection, and they decided to throw in a cannabis hyperemesis syndrome diagnosis because she uses 15 milligrams of THC every night. That is an incredibly low dose of cannabis. She has fibromyalgia. It helps her sleep. They did try to offer her opiates and Zofran, which is absolutely insane, but you can kind of see here, and I love the little comment on the bottom, I denied taking anti-nausea drugs because I'm not nauseous, and they're upset. This is the type of medical persecution that we get when we go into hospitals, and we'll get more into that later. Stigma is a big thing. When you tell somebody that you're a medical cannabis patient, the first thing they think of is Cheech and Chong, or Bob Marley, or some of the recreational images that have been afforded to us by culture. Affordability is a huge concern. Given the state structure for medical cannabis, we don't have the option of making this any more cost-effective than it is. Right now, medical marijuana centers in El Paso County are actually losing money. So it's the entire system needs to change so that patients can be better supported. Because of that, the industry doesn't meet our needs. And like I said, changes at the state level in the laws need to be made in order to fix that. Right now, Colorado is recriminalizing and demonizing patients and lumping them in with organized crime. You'll hear people talk about unregulated grows quite a bit and lumping them in with illegal grows. My tomato garden is unregulated. That doesn't mean it's illegal. Hospital scientific misconduct, and what that means as far as scientific misconduct, it means that statistics are being fluffed or purposely skewed to show specific outcomes. And here I've offered a couple more examples, and the hospitals are named, facilities are named, where either the patient was diagnosed with cannabis abuse syndrome or the cannabis hyperemesis syndrome falsely. And other things were overlooked simply because they have the stigma of being a cannabis patient. This is what's happening right now to our patients in Colorado hospitals. And as a result of this, we saw the sensationalist story about the cannabis hyperemesis, this new mysterious cannabis-based disease of cyclic vomiting. Oh, it's on the rise. Not necessarily. I would dispute that fact and say that there's actually a lot of scientific misconduct happening within our hospital system. Overlapping issues that cannabis patients and neighborhoods have. Organized crime. The perception of our city and our county. We don't want to be the stoner city. You know what I mean? Neighborhood safety is a huge concern because there is abuse, and when you have organized crime moving in, it does affect the safety of our neighbors. And patient access was actually an overlapping concern. Most non-cannabis users and most neighbors want legitimate patients to have access. Unfortunately, they just don't know how to tell the difference, and they don't know what that means. All right, so the impacts. Positive. Right, we have thousands of lives saved through access to phytocannabinoid therapy. If you look at just the numbers of epilepsy and seizure disorder patients alone who have reduced or stopped seizures because of cannabis therapy, that alone is enough to say that this is a life-saving treatment. Job and economic growth. Colorado has one of the fastest growing economies in the country. Spotlight on Colorado as a compassionate international leader. Colorado is making waves all over the world because of our medical marijuana program. We have several folks from other countries that come in. They come here to see if it works, and they advocate when they go home, and their stories become famous. And we are the ones allowing for their children and their loved ones to live. Increased tourism. Barring natural disasters like wildfires and flooding, Colorado has had some bang-up tourism years. Our property values have absolutely increased, and our laws have impacted organized crime. Impacts, the negative. All right, odor, here we are, odor. According to Colorado Springs Police Department, and this is a quote from Commander Mandel, complaints of marijuana odor are the #1 complaint we receive. Even with the carbon filters, the smell of flowering marijuana is very distinct in neighborhoods where people have grows that exceed the 12 plant count. Perception for investors. We discussed this at the medical marijuana work group, where a lot of investors, they come in and they're not sure how to deal with these medical marijuana centers. So they don't necessarily want to invest in buildings or properties or businesses around them because they don't know the effects that those centers are going to have on those businesses. Rental property damage, which is a huge thing. It's been all over the news, though I think we're seeing the same footage over and over and over again of these same rental properties being damaged, but it is a concern. And the looks of medical marijuana centers right now, most of the medical centers look very recreational, and that is a concern for a lot of folks, especially if patients truly wanted to be taken seriously. They're a little concerned about the psychedelic colors and whatnot on the inside of them, though that should be irrelevant. Fire risk from improper wiring, which is absolutely an issue. According to Colorado Springs Fire Department, they have seen an increase in fires due to home grows, though the stats that they actually were able to give me after I asked for this particular quote were 2 fires, 9 total related incidents over the last, I think it was January 15 to July 16. So that's quite a bit of time to only have 9, and that's not a severe increase in home grow fires or wiring fires. Possible solutions. Work with patients and caregivers to eliminate and reduce odor. This is a problem that now that we do have a legal market for entrepreneurs to get into, odor-reducing carbon filters are going to be improved upon, and I have a feeling this particular issue will go away on its own in a couple years as soon as we allow technology to catch up with our laws. Good neighbor cannabis etiquette classes are a fantastic solution. Teach the neighbors the laws, teach them responsible etiquette. Landlord awareness, I think that needs to be addressed, and landlord protections need to be addressed. And to reduce the in-your-face rec culture of medical dispensaries through collaboration with the owners. If we can work with the owners to make the dispensaries more medical in feel or less in-your-face, not that we would be able to get all of them to work together, but we could probably change the face of a good many of them by working with them rather than working against them. So what does a patient grow look like? You know, we've all seen those news stories where the police are taking out these trees in these homes, and you know, you've got 500, 600, 700 plants, an entire home has been gutted. That is the exception rather than the rule. It's incredibly the exception rather than the rule. This is a typical patient grow, and the tray, this white tray that's on the bottom, is a 4x8 tray. So you have 30 plants on the left-hand side. This is a sea of green technique, so it's not a bushy plant. You raise it for one giant cola, and you go from there and you start over. The middle are 60 plants in the same tray, and on the right there are 90 plants altogether, and there's still room left in that 8x4 tray. This is all under one light. So why is this important? Too many lives depend on access to cannabinoid therapy, and I can't stress that enough. Up here on this side, you see the pictures of some of our cannabis patients who are truly alive today because cannabis is available as a therapy. And the little picture down at the bottom that says 32 days seizure-free, she is now well over 100 days, and her mom is starting to really be thankful that she doesn't have to worry. She's starting to kind of de-stress about worrying about the seizures now after 100 and some odd days. But it's an amazing thing. She's smiling, she's laughing, she's growing. It will take science approximately 20 years to catch up to where the patients are. Granted, yes, we are winging this. We are really working very hard to take apart what's in cannabis and figure out, okay, does my illness respond to THC, CBD, what ratios? What if I need more cannabichromene? What if I need more tetrahydrocannabivarin? All of these different things the patients truly are keeping track of and trying to maintain. And right now, as it is with science, science is very linear. They will take one cannabinoid like THC and they'll research it for 10 years. Then they'll start combining it with other things and research that for another 10 years. And it's going to take them quite some time to get to where the patients are as far as learning how to combine mixed ratios, mixed cannabinoids with terpenes and flavonoids, et cetera, et cetera. Working together, we need to keep organized crime at bay, and we can only do that by working together. It's a win-win situation for neighbors and patients. We don't want organized crime in our neighborhoods either. It gives us a bad name, and it's really scary. The area that we moved from was incredibly cartel. We had Sinaloa and we had Zeta, which was quite interesting to say the least. Not a situation I would encourage or want for anyone. All right, and that is it as far as the class goes. Complementary to this particular class, we have a pamphlet called Medical Marijuana 101, A Patient's Perspective. And it goes through and it discusses several different things. For instance, Colorado system, the cost. It has myths that are quite common. It talks about different cannabinoids, common medicines that are replaced with cannabis, sample treatment plans. It talks about the endocannabinoid system, It's pretty comprehensive, so I would highly suggest looking that up. Also, this is my patient profile. Right here you can see this is my in-flare dose, and I have a 30-day autoimmune disease treatment plan. And as you can see, it's broken out quite nicely. Total number of grams, total number of ounces, total number of pounds per month. And this is, again, my in-flare dose. When I'm not in flare, I can divide that by half. However, these are the strain variations that I use to maintain things. So you can see it's not so cut and dry. It's not like any cannabis will do for a patient. Each patient reacts very differently. And this is also, this patient profile can also be found online at keepitlegalcolorado.org. I would like to encourage you guys, if you have any questions at all, to email us at cprcofcolorado@gmail.com. And thank you very much for attending this class.